modern refinery.
On August 31st, 1962, Trinidad and Tobago became an independent nation, thereby gaining freedom to enter bilateral and multilateral agreements with other countries, form its own military to protect its sovereignty, and produce its own flag, replacing the Union Jack. That big moment heralded the start of a journey which has taken us to where we are 54 years later. Broadcast pioneer Ken Gordon was tasked with leading the team responsible for transmitting the auspicious events of that night throughout the nation. He says the emotion was almost palpable.
I just recall it being a very emotional time for me and thinking that I was moving to a different level. What I would encounter, I wasn't too sure, but I felt it was a good thing to do and I was very proud of it.
Many thought his would be the voice announcing the lowering of the Union Jack and the moment our red, white and black flag was hoisted for the very first time. But that moment, he says, belonged to Peter Minshall.
He always had such a touch of drama in him that I felt the dramatic moment of lowering of that flag was something that we should use our various talent for. But I suppose my ego kept me from conveying that decision to him 5 or 10 minutes before I turned to him and said, "Peter, this is your moment, you have to do it."
Commenting on his experience, Peter Minshall says it was one of the most awesome moments of his life.
On a scaffolding built right outside the Red House, over on the southern end of the Red House, facing Woodford Square, Ken Gordon, about 3 minutes before that moment, handed me the microphone. And it was, with my heart in my hand, I described the moment of the raising and the lowering of the flag and the great emotion and the roar that went up in Woodford Square. It was one of the most awesome moments of my life.
Veteran politician Lionel Sukaran was also there. Of his experience, he said, it was a moment filled with pride. Mr. Gordon recalls that at the time many persons expressed misgivings. Though some of the fears were justified, he says he did not share their reservations.
There were many things when you throw your mind back that you have to say some of those fears were justified as fears for people who didn't want to run the risk of changing the comfort of their lives. But they were justified. But the reality is that countries can't stand still. They have to move forward. And you only move forward by taking responsibility for yourself, learning from what you do, and developing. And I think that's what we're in the process of doing.
Asked if we were ready for independence, Mr. Gordon says one could never be ready for something like that until one has lived it. He adds that as a nation we were blessed to take the bold steps towards independence with Dr. Eric Williams at the helm.
His maturity and his capacity as a communicator. And in essence, he had an inherent sense of fairness, which didn't always come out because sometimes he had a very sharp tongue.
The broadcast pioneer says despite Dr. Williams' flaws, his contribution to the independence movement was nothing short of tremendous.
He always kept you at a distance, except for those he wanted to embrace for whatever reason. And that had some merit to him at the time. But he was an extraordinary leader. It's arguable, I suppose. But in my book, he was the best leader the Caribbean has ever produced.
So here we are 54 years later. Our independence was fought for, the battle won. In the words of Dr. Eric Williams, the esteemed father of our nation, what use will you make of your independence?
Democracy means responsibility of the government to its citizens, the protection of the citizens from the exercise of arbitrary power and the violation of human freedom and individual rights. Democracy means freedom of worship for all, and the subordination of the rights of any one race to the overriding right of the human race.
Dionne, Baptiste, C News.